Before you sleep, step softly into a city pretending to rest, where power whispers, stones remember, and history exhales slowly, asking you to listen rather than look in the dark. Many listen quietly here, night after night. If this calm travels with you, you may stay. Subscribing keeps this silence alive. Midnight settles over Rome in the year 300 AD, not with a dramatic flourish, but with a tired sigh. Oil lamps flicker along narrow streets, their flames small and stubborn, clinging to life the way the city itself does. The stone-paved roads, smoothed by centuries of sandals, carts, and marching boots, still hold the warmth of the day. If you listen closely, you might imagine the stones remembering footsteps, reluctant to cool down completely. Rome, even at rest, refuses to forget itself. The night air is calm, but it is not fresh. It carries the lingering scent of smoke, sweat, wine, and old water. Somewhere, far off, a dog barks once, then thinks better of it, and goes quiet again. Doors are closed, shutters drawn, and most windows are dark. Most, but not all. Rome never truly sleeps. It merely lowers its voice and pretends to behave. This is Rome at midnight, when the greatest empire the world has ever known lies down and tells itself that tomorrow will be manageable. The lamps glow softly like excuses made to oneself before falling asleep. Just one more night, the city seems to whisper. Just one more night, holding everything together. By 300 AD, Rome is old. Not ancient in the romantic sense, but old in the way a powerful body becomes old. Still impressive, still intimidating, but undeniably tired. The muscles remember strength, yet the joints ache. The city has ruled for centuries, conquered continents, bent kings and gods to its will. And now in the quiet of the night, it tries to rest, as if rest alone could fix what time has slowly undone. There is no need to rush the history here. Rome does not rush anymore. The empire has learned patience, mostly because it has learned exhaustion. This is an age of reforms, of divided power, of emperors who come and go with unsettling speed. The borders are watched carefully, too carefully. That is often a sign. The night understands this, even if the city pretends not to. If you stand still long enough, you might hear the faint echo of earlier Romes layered beneath this one, the Rome of triumphal marches, the Rome of shouting crowds and blinding marble, the Rome that believed its own eternity without irony. Those Romes are still here technically, but they feel distant, like memories you are not sure actually happened to you. Now the city breathes slowly, deliberately. It has learned to conserve energy. The streets are quiet not because Rome feels safe, but because Rome is tired. There is a difference, and the night knows it well. Somewhere behind thick walls, senators sleep uneasy dreams. Some dream of order, others dream of control. A few dream of surviving the next political shift, with their wealth intact. Power, even when horizontal on a bed, refuses to rest peacefully. Rome's elite have always slept lightly. An empire built on ambition does not provide good pillows. The lamps outside their homes flicker anyway, loyal and indifferent. They illuminate statues whose faces have seen better centuries. Marble gods stare into the dark, expressionless, perhaps wondering how long belief lasts once it becomes routine. Even the gods of Rome seem quieter now, less talkative than they used to be. Worship, like everything else, has become tired. There is something almost touching about the way Rome tries to sleep, the largest empire on earth, drawing its blanket a little closer, hoping morning will arrive gently. The greatest empire in the world, one might say softly, trying to go to bed early so it can continue its decline tomorrow. The joke is light, almost affectionate. Rome has earned at least that much mercy. The unsettling part is how normal it all feels. No alarms ring. No dramatic signs announce that something is wrong. Empires do not collapse with explosions in the night. They fade between lamplight and silence, between confidence and routine. Rome's streets are not empty because danger is gone, but because everyone knows where they belong and where they should not be at this hour. Listen again. The quiet is heavy, not peaceful. It presses down gently like a reminder. This is the quiet of a city that has done too much for too long. The quiet of responsibility. The quiet of a structure held together by habit rather than belief. The stones beneath your feet remain warm, stubbornly so. They have absorbed the weight of history, and history does not cool quickly. Rome's past still radiates upward, even as the present tries to settle into sleep. Every building, every street corner carries the memory of authority. That memory lingers, refusing to dim completely, much like the lamps themselves. This is not the Rome of grand speeches and roaring crowds. This is the Rome between moments, when no one is watching and nothing needs to be proven. In these hours, the empire reveals itself most honestly. Not triumphant, not defeated, just weary. Somewhere in the darkness, a guard shifts his weight, fighting sleep. Somewhere else, a household slave lies awake, listening for sounds that mean trouble. Somewhere else still, a priest dreams of omens he will interpret badly in the morning. The city holds all of them at once, breathing around them, pretending that this stillness is peace. Rome at midnight is convincing. If you do not think too hard, it feels stable. It feels eternal. That is the trick. The most unsettling thing about this night is how reasonable it seems, how calm, how normal. Rome is quiet not because it is safe, but because it is too tired to panic. And so the lamps continue to burn. The streets remain warm. The empire closes its eyes just for a while. Tomorrow will come soon enough. The streets that are never truly empty. If you begin to walk now quietly, as if you belong to the night, Rome will let you pass without protest. Your steps would carry you first toward the Via Sacra, the old sacred road that has seen more history than it ever asked for. By day, it is crowded, ceremonial, heavy with memory. By night, it relaxes, though it never lets its guard down completely. The stones here are polished smooth by centuries of power moving back and forth, and they still remember what importance feels like. The Via Sacra at this hour is dim, lit only by scattered lamps and the pale confidence of the moon. Shadows stretch long and uneven, clinging to columns and archways. Statues line the road like tired witnesses, their stone faces softened by darkness. They look less divine at night, more like elderly relatives who have heard the same stories too many times. Rome does not mind. It is comfortable with its aging icons. As you walk, the silence breaks in small, careful ways. The soft scrape of sandals against stone, the rhythmic clink of armor as a night guard shifts his stance. Somewhere farther down the road, a wheel turns slowly, reluctantly, carrying a cart that should have arrived hours ago. Rome forgives lateness. Rome has learned that schedules are optimistic suggestions. The guard's footsteps are steady but unenthusiastic. He walks because he must, not because he believes something will happen. His helmet sits a little heavier than it should. His spear feels longer than it did earlier in the evening. He is guarding the heart of the empire, the symbolic center of the known world, and he would very much like to sit down. There is something quietly amusing about that. One sleepy man, keeping watch over history itself. He pauses, listens, then continues. Nothing threatens him. Nothing ever does. That is the point. The threat is not a sudden noise in the dark. The threat is how normal this feels. Leaving the Via Sacra, the road narrows. The grandeur fades politely, making room for narrower streets and crooked alleys. Here the buildings lean closer together, as if sharing secrets. Light struggles to reach the ground, and when it does, it arrives thin and uncertain. These are the places Rome does not show visitors. These are the streets that keep the city honest. The air changes here. It is heavier, closer, filled with the muted smells of daily life. Old food, damp stone, smoke that never quite leaves. A distant dog barks, sharp and brief, then falls silent. Another answers, farther away, more out of habit than alarm. Even the dogs seem tired. You pass doorways sealed for the night. Behind them, families sleep in tight spaces layered with dreams and worries. Somewhere, a child turns over in restless sleep. Somewhere else, a man lies awake, counting coins he no longer trusts. Rome's wealth and poverty share the same streets after dark. They always have. A pair of guards approaches from the opposite direction. Their pace is slow, synchronized, practiced. They nod as they pass, eyes half-focused, minds elsewhere. They are not expecting trouble. They are expecting the night to end eventually. The humor here is subtle but persistent. These men are tasked with watching over an empire that spans continents, and their greatest enemy at this moment is boredom. Their conversation is low, almost inaudible, complaints about the cold, about the length of the watch, about nothing at all. Rome's security reduced to murmured small talk and tired legs. It is not incompetence. It is routine. And routine, more than any enemy, is what changes empires. Farther down the alley, a cart creaks again. The sound echoes softly, bouncing between walls. Someone is moving goods late or early, depending on how you look at it. Rome's economy does not sleep either. It just conducts its business more quietly. Coins change hands in shadows. Promises are made without witnesses. The empire breathes through these small, unseen transactions. Every now and then, a lamp flares slightly brighter, fed by a careful hand. Someone is awake inside, perhaps reading, perhaps praying, perhaps simply avoiding sleep. Night in Rome is not empty. It is selective. It chooses who speaks and who listens. The streets curve unpredictably, refusing to be efficient. Rome was not designed for convenience. It was designed to grow, and growth is rarely tidy. You feel watched here, not by eyes, but by history. Every corner has seen something. Every wall has heard too much. The unsettling part is how quietly it all waits. Another guard stands at an intersection, leaning just enough to be informal, not enough to be punished. His eyes follow movement lazily. He yawns, then straightens, embarrassed even though no one notices. He is guarding the world, after all, or at least the idea of it. The night deepens, but it does not thicken. Sounds continue to drift through the darkness. Footsteps that are not yours, a door closing somewhere above, the distant splash of water in a fountain that never rests. Rome has mastered the art of low-volume existence. And that is the secret. Rome at night does not sleep. It whispers. It murmurs to itself, rehearsing the next day, replaying the last one. The city stays awake just enough to remember who it is supposed to be. Walking these streets, you understand something important. The emptiness is an illusion. The quiet is curated. Rome keeps moving even when it appears still. The empire survives not through noise and spectacle, but through persistence, through the unglamorous act of continuing. As you turn another corner, the street opens slightly, offering a glimpse of the sky. The stars above are faint, competing with smoke and lamplight. They look distant, unconcerned. Rome once believed it owned the heavens. Now it barely looks up. The footsteps fade behind you. The cart noise disappears into memory. The dogs remain silent. The streets hold their breath just for a moment. Then they resume their soft, steady murmur. Rome is awake. It is simply speaking very quietly. Homes sleep, and the constant weight of worry. As the streets settle into their quiet murmuring, Rome retreats indoors. Behind walls of brick, stone, and plaster, the city attempts something fragile and deeply human: sleep. Not rest, not peace, just sleep. In 300 AD, sleep is not a luxury evenly distributed. It depends on who you are, what you own, and how close you live to power, danger, or hunger. The night enters every home differently, carrying its own expectations with it. In the cramped apartments of the poor, sleep arrives early and leaves late. These buildings rise several stories high, stacked with lives that know each other too well. Rooms are small, ceilings low, air heavy. Families share beds, floors, and thin blankets. The warmth of bodies replaces proper insulation. Outside noise leaks in freely, footsteps above, arguments below, the city breathing through the walls. Privacy is a rumor here, not a reality. For the poor, exhaustion is honest. They sleep because they must. Their dreams are practical, unambitious. Food, work, tomorrow. Sleep comes quickly, but it is shallow, easily disturbed. A cough, a shout, the distant clang of metal, and eyes open again. Worry does not wait for daylight. It curls up beside them and sleeps lightly. History often ignores these rooms because they look unremarkable, but this is where Rome actually lives, not in marble halls, but in these crowded spaces where survival is routine. The empire's strength is measured in taxes and legions, but its endurance lives here, in people who wake up tired and continue anyway. Farther away, behind thicker walls and guarded entrances, the wealthy prepare for the night differently. Their homes are quieter, deliberately so. Courtyards separate bedrooms from the street. Curtains are heavy. Lamps burn longer, not out of necessity, but out of preference. Comfort is arranged carefully, like a performance meant for oneself. Beds are wide, fabrics are soft. The air smells of oils and incense chosen to suggest calm. And yet, sleep does not come easily here either. The wealthy lie awake longer, their minds busier than their bodies. They sleep on silk and dream of instability. Sleeping on silk while dreaming political nightmares is not a contradiction in Rome. It is a pattern. These men and women have more to lose, and Rome has taught them this lesson well. Power shifts quickly now. Alliances age badly. An emperor's favor is a temporary condition. The night stretches on as thoughts loop endlessly. Who is rising? Who is falling? Who might be remembered tomorrow, and who might quietly disappear? Their sleep is lighter than it should be for people so comfortable. Even their dreams are crowded, filled with speeches, accusations, sudden silences. They wake before dawn, not refreshed but alert. Rested bodies are useful. Rested minds are dangerous. Between these two worlds lie the soldiers. Some sleep in barracks, some in makeshift quarters, some wherever the watch allows. Their sleep is functional, disciplined, shaped by habit rather than comfort. Armor rests nearby, always close enough to reach. Weapons are leaned carefully, respectfully, as if they might overhear. A soldier's sleep is trained. He learns to ignore discomfort, noise, cold. He learns to wake quickly. Dreams are brief and often repetitive. Marching, shouting, standing still for long periods of time. Rome teaches its soldiers to sleep, as if the world might end politely with warning. There is irony here too, quiet and persistent. The men tasked with defending the empire sleep in conditions closer to the poor than the powerful. They carry the weight of Rome on their shoulders, and their reward is a few hours of restless rest. Still, many of them sleep better than senators. Simpler minds sometimes do. The night moves through all these spaces without judgment. It does not care who owns what. It presses gently against every window, slides under every door. It listens. Rome is full of breathing, layered and uneven. A city inhaling and exhaling through thousands of lungs. Domestic life in this period is rarely peaceful, no matter the class. Illness is common. Death is familiar. Families are large, partly because life is short. A cough in the night carries implications. A fever is never just a fever. Sleep is interrupted by caregiving, by fear, by the awareness that mourning does not guarantee continuation. Somewhere a mother wakes to check on a child. Somewhere else a servant rises quietly to ensure a lamp stays lit. Somewhere else a man stares at the ceiling, counting years rather than sheep. Rome does not demand heroism at night. It demands endurance. Even in wealthier homes, silence is not empty. Slaves move softly through corridors, trained to exist without sound. Their sleep comes in fragments, borrowed between tasks. They dream less of tomorrow and more of escape, though even that feels abstract. Rome is efficient at teaching people the limits of imagination. This is daily life, rarely recorded, rarely celebrated. And yet it forms the texture of the empire more than any decree or battle. Rome's nights are filled with small concerns, multiplied by millions. That accumulation matters. It always does. The unsettling truth is how familiar it all feels. Strip away the oil lamps and stone walls, and the pattern remains. People worrying in the dark. People hoping sleep will make tomorrow easier. Rome is ancient, but its nights are timeless. Toward the edges of the city, where structures thin and the countryside begins to intrude, sleep changes again. Farmers resting briefly before dawn. Travelers curled near animals for warmth. Their dreams are shaped by weather and seasons, by forces larger than politics. Rome touches them lightly here, but it still touches them. Across the city, the wealthy eventually drift into uneasy sleep. The poor sink deeper into exhaustion. Soldiers surrender to habit. The empire holds itself together through these scattered, imperfect rests. No one is fully at peace. Everyone is suspended. History often describes Rome through motion, marches, speeches, conquests, but nights like this reveal something quieter and more fragile. An empire is not only what it does when awake, it is also what it worries about when it tries to sleep. The lamps burn lower. Breathing deepens or doesn't. Dreams unfold and collapse. Rome lies still, not because it is secure, but because it has learned how to pause without resolving anything. Tomorrow will arrive soon enough, carrying the same questions forward. For now, the city sleeps, not well, not deeply, but enough to continue. Guards, walls, and the fear without a name. The night watch continues while the rest of Rome pretends to forget itself. Along the walls, at gates, and at key intersections, the guards remain awake, standing between the city and whatever might decide not to knock. Their world is narrow and repetitive. Stone beneath their boots, wood and iron in their hands, darkness stretching just far enough to make the eyes work harder than they should. They are tired. Not dramatically tired. Not heroically exhausted. Just worn down in the quiet way that comes from too many nights that look exactly like this one. Their shoulders sag when they think no one is watching. Their minds wander when the hours stretch thin, yet their eyes keep moving. Habit does most of the work now. Rome runs on habit. A guard shifts his weight, the leather of his armor creaking softly. He knows every sound his equipment makes. He knows which ones matter and which ones do not. He listens to the city breathing behind him and the countryside waiting beyond the walls. Both feel equally distant. Both feel equally heavy. The walls themselves rise beside him, thick and reassuring. They are old, layered with repairs, reinforcements, and confidence from earlier centuries. They were built to last, and in many ways they have. Stone still holds. Mortar still binds. The walls look solid enough to keep the world out forever. That is part of the problem. They look convincing. There is a quiet irony in guarding walls that were designed for a different kind of danger. The enemies these stones were meant to stop wore familiar armor, marched invisible formations, announced themselves with banners and horns. The threats Rome faces now are less considerate. They do not line up politely outside the gate. The guard stares into the darkness beyond the wall. He sees nothing, and that unsettles him more than movement would. Nothing demands attention. Nothing gives him a reason to act. The fear here is shapeless, uncooperative. It does not arrive on schedule. He tells himself stories to stay awake, memories of training, complaints about food, imagined conversations he will never have. Humor helps even here, especially here. Somewhere in his thoughts, the idea surfaces again. He is guarding the entire world, and the world has the audacity to be boring tonight. The Empire expects vigilance, not enthusiasm. The guard understands this. His duty is to be present, not inspired. Still, there is something faintly absurd about the situation. A single human being, fighting sleep, protecting a structure, already straining under its own weight. He does not think in those terms, of course. He thinks about the cold. Other guards stand at intervals along the wall, silhouettes against darker silhouettes. They do not speak much. Speech wastes energy. Silence feels safer. Each man exists in his own pocket of alertness, connected to the others by shared routine rather than conversation. Somewhere below, inside the city, Rome sleeps poorly. Somewhere beyond the wall, the land waits, without comment. The guard belongs fully to neither place. He exists on the line between inside and outside certainty and possibility. Rome's walls have always symbolized control. They say, here is where order begins and chaos ends. Tonight, they feel less confident. Not weaker exactly, but unsure of what they are meant to protect against. Stone cannot stop uncertainty. No wall has ever managed that. The unsettling thought creeps in during the quietest moments. What if the greatest danger is already inside? What if the walls are doing their job perfectly and it simply does not matter anymore? The guard pushes the thought away. Philosophy is above his pay grade. Still, the thought returns. It always does. Rome's enemies are not always strangers. Sometimes they wear familiar faces. Sometimes they speak Latin. Sometimes they sign decrees. The guard knows enough history to understand that much. He has heard stories. Everyone has. He adjusts his grip on his spear. The metal is cool, comforting in its simplicity. This at least makes sense. Threat appears, response follows. Cause and effect. The Empire once ran on that logic. Now, things feel less direct. A breeze moves along the wall, carrying the smell of damp earth and distant smoke. The guard breathes deeply, then immediately regrets it. The air tastes old. Rome's air always does. It has been recycled through too many centuries. Down below, a torch flares briefly as another guard passes through a gate. Light spills out, then withdraws again, like a thought that decides not to finish itself. The city remains contained, controlled, quiet. Too quiet, perhaps. The night stretches. Time loses its shape. Minutes feel like suggestions. Hours feel negotiable. The guard's body remembers when his shift will end, even if his mind drifts. He focuses on small details to stay present. The pattern of stone, the rhythm of his breathing, the sound of his boots when he shifts again. Rome depends on this, on men who do not fall asleep, on attention that does not wander too far, on fear that remains just strong enough to prevent mistakes. The empire is held together by these thin threads, repeated thousands of times across its borders. There is a soft humor in that, if one is inclined to notice. Rome, conqueror of nations, rests on the shoulders of men who would prefer to be anywhere else at this hour. Men who guard an empire slowly eroding from within, one quiet compromise at a time. The guard does not know this in detail. He feels it instead as a vague pressure, a sense that something is off, that the stories he was told about Rome's permanence no longer sound entirely convincing in the dark. He listens again. Nothing, no footsteps, no horns, no alarms. The silence presses closer, not threatening, just persistent. The fear here has no name because it has no face. It is the fear of continuation, of standing watch night after night while something unseen shifts beneath the surface. Somewhere along the wall, another guard coughs. The sound travels farther than intended, then disappears. Life continues, even here, even now. The empire breathes through these small, imperfect bodies. The wall stands. The guard remains awake. Rome survives another night, not through strength or brilliance, but through endurance. The most unsettling truth of all is how unremarkable it feels. The greatest threat is not outside the gate. It never has been. The guard does not articulate this, but the night understands it perfectly. Temples, gods, and late-night prayers. Beyond the walls and the watchful guards, beyond the homes where sleep comes uneasily, Rome keeps a different kind of vigil. The temples remain. They always do. Even at night, even when most of the city has withdrawn into private worries, the sacred spaces linger in a half-awake state, suspended between reverence and routine. A temple at night feels smaller than it does by day. Columns rise into darkness instead of sunlight. Statues lose their grandeur and gain shadows. The marble floors are cool now, the heat of worshippers' feet long gone. Oil lamps burn low near altars, their flames steady but tired, casting light that seems reluctant to travel far. Incense smoke hangs in the air, thin and stale, curling lazily, as if it too has prayed too many times before. The gods of Rome are used to attention. They have been called upon for victories, harvests, marriages, wars, and excuses. By 300 AD, they are also used to disappointment. The city still honors them, still names them, still offers gestures of respect. But belief has changed texture. It has become quieter, more transactional, less confident. At night, the temples receive a different kind of visitor. Fewer crowds, fewer formal rituals. Instead, individuals arrive alone or in pairs, footsteps cautious, voices low. They do not come to celebrate, they come to ask, or to bargain, or simply to be seen by something that might still be listening. A man stands before an altar, head bowed, hands rough and uncertain. He does not know the proper words, so he repeats the familiar ones. He asks for health, for protection, for stability. The requests are modest. Rome has taught him not to expect miracles anymore. There is a faint, almost affectionate humor in the timing of these prayers. Romans pray to their gods late at night because during the day, no one seems to answer. Praying to the gods at night, one might think, because during the day, even the gods are busy. Busy with other cities, perhaps, or other priorities, or simply tired of Rome's requests. The temples do not judge. Stone never does. They absorb whispered hopes and silent frustrations with equal indifference. The statues stand still, their expressions unchanged. Jupiter looks no more impressed than usual. Mars appears unimpressed by fear. Venus remains distant, as always. Yet the night gives these spaces a strange intimacy. Without crowds, the divine feels closer, even if less responsive. The echo of a single footstep seems louder here. A sigh lingers longer. The air feels heavy with unsaid things. Some worshippers light incense carefully, as if sudden movement might offend the divine. Smoke rises, thins, and fades. It smells familiar, comforting, and faintly disappointing, like a promise that has been kept too often to feel meaningful. Rome's religious life has always been practical. The gods are partners, not mysteries. You offer something, you expect something in return. But lately the exchanges feel unbalanced. Offerings increase, results do not. The night knows this. The temples feel it. In a corner, a woman kneels, her prayer silent. She does not ask for Rome to endure or the empire to prosper. Those requests feel too large, too abstract. She asks for her child to survive the winter, for illness to pass, for one problem, just one, to ease its grip. These are the prayers that fill the temples now. Smaller, sharper, more urgent. History often frames Roman religion as confident, organized, unshakable. That version exists, but it does not dominate the night. At night, faith frays. It becomes personal, anxious, experimental. Romans hedge their bets, honoring old gods while quietly listening to rumors of new ones. The temples know this too. They have seen cults rise and fall, rituals change, names shift, gods come and go, stone remains. There is something unsettling about that permanence. The divine feels temporary. Architecture feels eternal. A priest passes through, adjusting a lamp, ensuring nothing catches fire. His movements are efficient, almost bored. Faith, when practiced daily, becomes maintenance. He has heard every prayer before in some form. He does not judge them, but he does not linger either. The gods will do what they do, or they will not. Outside, the city remains hushed. Inside the temple, time feels suspended. The night stretches these moments, makes them feel heavier than they are. Doubt settles in quietly, not as rebellion, but as fatigue. Rome has always been religious, but now it feels nervous about it. The gods are still invoked, but rarely trusted fully. There is a growing sense that divine protection, like imperial stability, might have conditions no one fully understands anymore. Somewhere in the shadows, a small offering lies forgotten. A coin, a piece of bread, a symbol of hope left behind when the owner could not wait any longer. The gods receive it without comment. The unsettling part is not that people pray. It is that they pray without confidence. They ask without certainty. They hope without conviction. The night amplifies this uncertainty, wrapping it in quiet and incense smoke. Rome once believed its gods marched with its legions. Now it wonders whether the gods have quietly stepped aside, or whether Rome itself has wandered too far to be easily found. The lamps burn lower, the smoke thins. One by one, worshippers leave, pulling cloaks tighter around themselves as they step back into the night. Their prayers remain behind, lingering briefly, then dissolving into the air. The temples return to stillness, holding unanswered questions within their walls. Rome moves on, carrying its doubts gently, carefully, as if afraid they might shatter in daylight. The gods remain. The city remains. But something between them feels less certain now. Politics never sleeps, even when the people do. While temples dim and homes fall quiet, another Rome fully wakes. It does not light lamps in public streets or announce itself with footsteps. It exists behind heavy doors, behind curtains, behind carefully neutral expressions. Politics, unlike the city's laborers or guards, does not respect the night. In fact, it prefers it. Here, sleep is optional. Power has always suffered from insomnia. In 300 AD, Rome's political machinery is complex, fragmented, and deeply sensitive. The old simplicity of one emperor, one capital, one unquestioned authority has faded. In its place stands a system patched together through reforms, compromises, and constant vigilance. the empire still functions, impressively so, but only because it never fully relaxes. Behind closed doors, oil lamps burn brighter than they do in temples. Wax tablets are unfolded. Scrolls are reread. Messengers arrive late, leave earlier, and say less than they know. The night absorbs secrets well. Rome has learned to take advantage of that. A senator sits awake in his private chamber, fingers resting on a letter he has already read 3 times. The words have not changed, but their implications refuse to settle. A governor complains of unrest. A general hints at dissatisfaction. The tone is polite, loyal, respectful. It always is. Threats in Rome rarely announce themselves openly. He exhales slowly. Everyone, after all, claims to act for Rome. That is the language. It is expected. It is also meaningless. Everyone says they serve the empire. Everyone means themselves first. There is something almost admirable in the consistency of this hypocrisy. Rome has perfected it over centuries. Elsewhere, another figure reads a different message, reaching a different conclusion. Alliances are being weighed. Names are being evaluated not for merit, but for usefulness. Loyalty is measured carefully, like a substance that must not be wasted. Too much trust is dangerous. Too little is ineffective. Politics here is not dramatic in the way stories like to imagine. There are no shouted arguments at midnight, no drawn swords, no sudden betrayals under torchlight. There is only quiet calculation, silence, delays, the strategic use of waiting. Rome's rulers have learned that the most effective movements are the ones no one notices at first. Rumors drift through these rooms like incense smoke did through the temples, soft, persistent, impossible to trace to a single source. Someone heard something, someone suspects something, someone is positioning themselves, just in case. No one wants to be the last to realize the ground has shifted. This is the unsettling rhythm of late imperial politics. Not collapse, but vibration. A constant, barely perceptible trembling beneath the surface. The empire does not fall apart. It hums uneasily. Letters are written with deliberate ambiguity. Words are chosen carefully, designed to mean one thing now and something else later. Rome has become fluent in plausible deniability. It is one of its most refined arts. A clerk copies documents by lamplight, careful not to make mistakes. He understands that errors are no longer merely inconvenient. They are dangerous. A miscopied name, a misdated order, and suddenly responsibility becomes negotiable. In Rome, blame travels faster than truth. Outside, the city sleeps. Inside these rooms, the empire debates its own direction in whispers. Decisions are postponed, revisited, reframed. Action feels risky. Inaction feels safer, for now. There is a quiet irony here, too. Rome once expanded through boldness, through decisive movement. Now it survives through hesitation. The empire is still vast, still powerful, but it behaves like something aware of its own fragility. The night deepens, and still the lamps burn. Politics does not allow itself to drift into dreams. Dreams are dangerous. They suggest alternatives. An official paces slowly, counting steps unconsciously. He tells himself that everything is under control. The borders are held. The armies are loyal. The people are quiet. Quiet is good. Quiet means stability. He repeats this like a prayer, though he no longer believes prayers work reliably. Rome's political class has become deeply skilled at maintaining appearances. The city must look confident. The emperor must look assured. Laws must appear firm. Reforms must seem intentional. Beneath that surface, doubt circulates freely. Who will rule next? Who should? Who must be removed to prevent greater disruption later? These questions are never written down fully. They exist in fragments, spread across conversations, letters, and silences. There is a deeper, more uncomfortable truth that few are willing to acknowledge, even to themselves. The system no longer knows what it is protecting. The idea of Rome remains powerful, but its definition has grown blurry. Is it the city? The empire? The law? The memory? Everyone answers differently, and that disagreement is never resolved. It simply continues. The unsettling feeling is not that Rome is about to collapse at any moment. It is that it could continue like this for a very long time, slowly adapting, slowly hardening, slowly losing coherence while retaining structure. A messenger slips through a side entrance, delivers a sealed note, and leaves without comment. Somewhere else, another message waits, unanswered, its relevance already fading. Time moves differently here. Urgency competes with fatigue. Politics at this stage feels less like leadership and more like damage control. The goal is no longer greatness, it is continuity. Another year, another decade, if possible, another generation, ideally. And yet everyone involved still speaks the language of destiny. Rome is eternal. Rome is necessary. Rome must endure. These phrases are repeated often enough to sound true, even as the people saying them quietly prepare alternatives. The empire trembles not because it is weak, but because it is stretched thin across too many expectations. The silence of the night amplifies this tension. Without crowds, without ceremony, the machinery of power looks exposed, almost fragile. Eventually, some lamps are extinguished. Not all. There is always someone awake, rereading, reconsidering, recalculating. Politics does not trust the dark, but it thrives in it. When morning comes, Rome will present itself as confident and composed. Decrees will be issued. Officials will smile. The city will continue. No one will mention how much of the night was spent quietly worrying about survival. That is the unspoken agreement. The people sleep. The politicians do not. And the empire continues to shake gently, persistently in the dark. Late taverns and drunken truths. As politics whispers behind closed doors and guards stare into the dark, another layer of Rome remains awake for simpler reasons. The taverns, low-roofed, smoke-filled, permanently sticky, they glow softly in the night like stubborn embers that refuse to die out. These places do not pretend to be important. That is exactly why they are. A tavern at night smells like spilled wine, old wood, sweat, and decisions that felt reasonable a few hours ago. Lamps hang low, their light uneven and forgiving. Shadows blur faces just enough to make everyone feel slightly more honest. Here, Rome relaxes its posture, not because it is safe, but because it is tired of performing. Inside, the crowd is familiar. A retired soldier with a stiff leg and a louder laugh than necessary. A merchant counting coins that never quite add up the way he hoped. A man who once mattered and now mostly remembers that he did. They sit close together not out of friendship, but because warmth is practical and space is limited. The wine is cheap. No one pretends otherwise. It is thin, sharp, and poured generously to compensate. The conversations, however, are expensive, heavy with opinion, thick with frustration. Cheap wine, costly truths, one might say, though no one here would phrase it that politely. A soldier lifts his cup and complains about his service, not dramatically, just enough to be convincing. He talks about long marches, unclear orders, and the strange feeling of defending a place that feels less certain each year. He does not say the word decline. He does not need to. Everyone knows what he means. The merchant nods, then adds his own story. Taxes are unpredictable. Regulations change. Routes feel less secure. He jokes about how Rome demands loyalty, but negotiates like a desperate client. The laughter that follows is quiet and short. Humor works better when it is shared. In the corner, a man who is lost more than the others listens carefully. He drinks slower. His complaints are fewer but heavier. He once held a position, once had influence. Now he has stories. Rome is full of men like this, gently pushed aside by time rather than force. They make excellent observers. The tavern absorbs these voices without judgment. It has heard worse. It has heard better. Tonight it hears honesty softened by alcohol. That combination is reliable. There is a comforting rhythm here. Drink, speak, pause, listen. No speeches, no plans, just commentary. Rome discussed at eye level, not from marble steps. The empire becomes manageable when reduced to anecdotes. Someone jokes that the gods must drink somewhere else now. Another replies that if they still drink in Rome, they must have strong stomachs. Laughter spreads briefly, then fades. Even jokes know when not to linger. What emerges in these conversations is not rebellion, not despair, but familiarity. These people know Rome too well to idealize it. They have lived inside its systems. They understand its habits. Their complaints are not exaggerated. They are precise. A retired legionary mentions that recruits seem younger lately, less patient, less attached to the idea of Rome as destiny. He shrugs. Times change, he says, though his tone suggests he does not entirely believe they should. No one argues. A trader mutters about borders feeling farther away, even when they are not. News travels oddly now, sometimes too fast, sometimes not at all. Rome feels larger and smaller at the same time. This earns a thoughtful silence. The tavern keeper moves among them, refilling cups, collecting coins, pretending not to hear. He has heard everything before. His loyalty is to balance, not ideology. As long as voices remain low and hands remain calm, Rome can complain safely here. There is something gently subversive about these spaces, not because they plan anything, but because they speak without polishing the truth. No one here claims to act for Rome. They speak for themselves. It is refreshing. The night deepens and the stories grow looser. Someone exaggerates a little, someone remembers something incorrectly. Truth bends, but it does not break. In fact, it becomes clearer in its own crooked way. A man at the table slurs that Rome feels old, then corrects himself. Not old, he says, just tired. This is met with nods. Tired is acceptable. Tired is relatable. Tired does not require solutions. The unsettling part is how accurate these half-drunken observations are. These men do not read reports or draft policies. Yet they sense the same instability felt by senators and generals. The difference is that here it is spoken plainly, without consequence. Outside, the city remains quiet. Inside, Rome processes itself through conversation. The empire's self-awareness leaks out in taverns, diluted but undeniable. Someone raises a cup to Rome without enthusiasm or irony, just habit. The toast is returned automatically. No one elaborates. Rome does not need explanation here. As the night wears on, some drift away. Others stay longer than intended. The wine runs lower, voices soften. Complaints repeat themselves. There is comfort in repetition. It suggests continuity. Eventually, even the tavern grows tired. Lamps dim. The keeper signals last pours. Coins are gathered. Cloaks are adjusted. One by one, the patrons step back into the night, carrying with them truths that will dissolve by morning. The streets accept them quietly. Rome absorbs their words without response. Tomorrow these same men will return to their roles. Soldier, merchant, nobody. The empire will continue. But for a few hours, in low light and cheaper wine, Rome spoke honestly about itself, and that somehow feels more revealing than any official decree. Rumors, whispers, and the collective fear. After the taverns empty and the lamps grow fewer, something else begins to move through Rome. It has no footsteps, no uniforms, no fixed direction. It slips through alleyways, across courtyards and under doors. It does not need permission. It does not need proof. It only needs silence. Rumor thrives at night. In the quiet hours, Rome becomes an echo chamber. Words spoken earlier in confidence loosen their edges and drift. Someone heard something. Someone knows someone who saw something. Someone's cousin's neighbor is suddenly very certain. The night is generous with imagination. A whisper begins near a gate. Perhaps it is about unrest among the legions. Nothing dramatic, just dissatisfaction, low morale, delayed pay. The whisper does not accuse. It suggests. Suggestions are more effective. By the time it reaches another district, the whisper has acquired shape. Soldiers are unhappy. Commanders are divided. Loyalty is uncertain. No one can trace where the story started, which gives it credibility. In Rome, anonymity often passes for truth. Another rumor follows a different path. This one comes from the countryside. Foreign movement. Unusual gatherings. Too quiet, too organized. The borders feel closer than they did last year. Someone swears they heard it from a trader who heard it from a scout who heard it from someone reliable. Reliability, like distance, becomes flexible in the dark. Elsewhere, religious anxiety takes its turn. The gods are displeased. The signs have been missed. Sacrifices were insufficient. A statue cracked. A flame burned oddly. Someone dreamed something unsettling and woke convinced it mattered. In a city built on omens, dreams are never just dreams. These rumors do not collide. They layer. Each one reinforces the others, not logically, but emotionally. The result is not panic. Rome does not panic easily. The result is tension. A low, constant awareness that something is wrong, even if no one agrees on what. This is the psychology of late Rome. Not ignorance, but overstimulation. Too much information, too little certainty. The empire is connected, communicative, and deeply unsure of itself. Every message feels important. Every silence feels suspicious. People listen carefully now, not because they expect clarity, but because they fear missing something crucial. Rumors fill the gaps left by official language. Decrees are confident. Reality feels complicated. The space between them is where whispers live. There is an irony here that Rome would appreciate if it were less tired. The city fears the truth most of all, so rumors survive longer than facts. Facts are specific. They can be challenged. Rumors are adaptable. They grow stronger when questioned. A man hears a rumor about rebellion and dismisses it aloud, yet repeats it later with minor adjustments. A woman hears a story about divine anger and laughs, but leaves a small offering the next day, just in case. This is how fear behaves when it does not want to admit itself. Rome has always relied on confidence as a stabilizing force. Now confidence is harder to maintain. The empire still projects certainty, but the people sense the effort behind it. That effort is exhausting to witness. The night encourages this uncertainty. Without daylight, details soften, shadows lengthen, every sound feels intentional, every pause feels loaded, the mind fills in blanks generously, rarely optimistically. Some rumors contradict others. That does not weaken them. It strengthens the overall mood. Contradiction suggests complexity. Complexity suggests significance. The truth, whatever it is, must be important if it cannot be agreed upon. This collective anxiety does not erupt. It settles. It becomes background noise like distant traffic or the constant drip of water in an old fountain. Rome learns to live with it, to sleep beside it, to wake up still carrying it. In earlier centuries, fear came from outside. Armies, plagues, disasters. Now fear comes from within, from uncertainty about identity, direction, and purpose. Rome has become introspective, and introspection is rarely comfortable for empires. The social fabric tightens subtly. People trust familiar faces more. Outsiders are watched a little longer. Conversations are careful. Humor becomes defensive. Laughter still exists, but it arrives quickly and leaves just as fast. Even officials are not immune. They hear the same rumors, filtered through different channels. They know which ones are false. They suspect which ones might not be. The problem is that knowing does not always help. Sometimes it makes things worse. The unsettling calm persists. No riots, no mass hysteria, just a city quietly bracing itself for something undefined. Rome has become excellent at waiting without knowing what it is waiting for. Religion absorbs some of this anxiety. So does politics. So do taverns. Everyone carries a piece of the collective fear, like a shared burden distributed evenly enough to remain manageable. The night stretches on, and the rumors continue their slow circulation. They lose urgency but gain endurance. By morning, many will fade. A few will harden into assumptions. None will disappear completely. This is how Rome changes now. Not through sudden revelation, but through accumulation. Small doubts, layered until they form something solid enough to influence behavior. The city does not collapse under this weight. It adapts. It becomes cautious, reactive, defensive. Rome is still powerful, still organized, still vast, but it listens to itself too closely now, and what it hears makes it uneasy. As dawn approaches, the whispers soften. People retreat into routines. Official language resumes its confident tone. The rumors retreat underground, waiting for the next quiet night. Rome fears the truth because the truth would require decisions. Rumors allow delay, and delay for now feels safer. The city remains standing, the fear remains unnamed, and the night releases Rome back into daylight, unchanged on the surface, subtly altered underneath. Before dawn, the fragile moment. The night does not end suddenly in Rome. It loosens its grip slowly, reluctantly, as if unsure whether it is truly finished. Somewhere between darkness and light, the city exhales. Not in relief exactly, but in habit. Rome has survived another night. That, for now, is enough. The sky begins to change almost imperceptibly. Black gives way to deep blue, then to a thin gray that spreads without urgency. No announcement is made, no signal is given. Dawn arrives the way most things do in late Rome. Quietly, cautiously, hoping not to draw too much attention. The lamps that burned all night are still lit, though they no longer feel necessary. Their flames look smaller now, less confident, as if aware they will soon be irrelevant. Some will be extinguished deliberately. Others will fade on their own, forgotten after hours of loyal service. Rome has always been comfortable, letting things disappear without ceremony. The streets, empty just moments ago, begin to stir, not with movement yet, but with potential. Doors remain closed, but behind them bodies shift. Breath deepens, sleep loosens. The city prepares itself without quite committing to wakefulness. Light creeps along the tops of buildings first. Roof lines catch a pale glow while the streets below remain shaded and uncertain. The contrast feels symbolic, though no one stops to interpret it. Rome does not need metaphors explained to it anymore. A guard at the wall notices the change and straightens slightly. The night watch is nearly over. His relief is practical, not emotional. Morning does not solve anything, but it does end his shift. That matters. Birds begin to test the air with tentative sound. One call, then another. The city listens, then allows the noise. Nature has its own schedule, indifferent to imperial concerns. Rome once tried to control that too. Now it mostly observes. Inside homes, people wake unevenly. The poor rise first, pulled from shallow sleep by necessity. Work does not wait for contemplation. They move quietly, efficiently, carrying the night's worries forward without comment. The wealthy wake later, often before sunrise, but reluctantly, minds already busy replaying yesterday and rehearsing today. Soldiers stretch sore muscles and prepare to resume routine. Armor is adjusted, belts tightened, faces washed quickly. The empire requires a certain appearance of readiness, even if confidence must be borrowed. The light grows stronger, though still soft. It reveals details the night concealed. Cracks in walls, uneven stones, the wear on statues that once looked timeless. Daylight is honest in a way darkness is not. Rome tolerates honesty better, in small doses. There is a fragile sense of possibility in these moments. The night's tension has not disappeared, but it is loosened. Fear retreats slightly, not defeated, just distracted. Hope slips in quietly, unannounced, hoping not to be challenged. Hope in late Rome is subtle. It does not expect transformation. It hopes for continuity, for a day without disruption, for problems to remain manageable, for rumors to remain rumors. The city hums faintly as activity resumes. Carts begin to move. Vendors prepare their goods. Officials ready themselves for public appearances. Rome reassembles its daily performance, piece by piece. The unsettling calm remains, but it feels less heavy in daylight. Shadows retreat. Corners reveal themselves. The unknown feels temporarily contained. Morning has that effect, even when it lies. There is mild irony in how quickly Rome regains its composure. After a night of whispers, prayers, calculations, and doubts, the city wakes as if nothing happened. This is not denial, it is survival. Rome has learned that acknowledging everything at once would be exhausting. Sunlight reaches the streets now, thin but persistent. The stones warm again, repeating yesterday's cycle. The empire runs on repetition. That is both its strength and its weakness. A passerby glances at the sky and squints. It will be a clear day. That feels significant, though no one can say why. Good weather has always felt like approval, even when no one is certain from whom. Somewhere, a priest prepares for morning rituals. Somewhere else, a politician prepares statements. Somewhere else, a merchant prepares excuses. Life resumes its familiar shapes. The hope that surfaces before dawn is not ambitious. It does not dream of reform or renewal. It simply hopes that today will resemble yesterday closely enough to be navigated. That hope is small, but it is persistent. Rome has always been skilled at existing between extremes, not collapsing, not thriving uncontrollably, just continuing. Dawn reinforces that instinct. It suggests that endurance is still possible. Yet beneath this fragile optimism lies an unspoken understanding. This was only one night, one cycle completed, one pause in a longer story. Morning does not erase what the night revealed. It merely postpones confrontation. The rumors will return, the doubts will resurface, the prayers will remain unanswered. Politics will continue to vibrate beneath the surface. The walls will still guard against threats that are no longer clearly external. Rome knows this even as it stretches into the day. The city does not expect salvation from sunlight. It expects distraction, and distraction is often enough. The fragile moment passes quickly. Day asserts itself, the night releases its hold entirely. The lamps go out, the shadows shrink, the empire steps back into motion. For now, Rome breathes. Not deeply, not freely, but steadily. Another day begins, carrying the weight of many nights before it. This was not a turning point. It was not a revelation. It was simply dawn. And in late Rome, that is both reassuring and quietly unsettling. Rome is still there, but no longer the same. The day moves forward as it always does, but something from the night lingers, not visibly, not dramatically. It settles instead into the quiet spaces between actions, into the pauses that no one remarks upon. After the long night, Rome feels still, not empty, not defeated, just still. The city stands exactly where it stood before, walls upright, roads intact, temples open, offices functioning. To an outside observer, nothing has changed. That is Rome's greatest talent. It can absorb uncertainty without showing damage. It has practiced this for centuries. Yet beneath the familiar rhythm, there is a subtle shift, a heaviness that was not always there. The night has left its fingerprints behind, smudged across thoughts, conversations, decisions. Rome does not collapse after nights like these. It carries on, slightly altered, barely aware of the accumulation. The streets are busier now. Voices rise. Commerce resumes. Officials move with purpose. The empire performs competence convincingly. It always has. Performance is a form of power, and Rome still understands the script. But listen closely, and the tone has softened. The confidence is quieter, less theatrical. Rome no longer shouts its permanence. It states it politely, hoping no one asks follow-up questions. There is a strange calm in this realization. The night did not bring disaster. Dawn did not bring salvation. The city remains suspended between those extremes. That, perhaps, is its natural state now. Rome has not fallen, not tonight, not yet. It still governs, still commands, still organizes the world according to its rules. Roads still lead here. Laws still echo outward. The empire functions. That fact alone is impressive. And yet something essential has changed. Rome no longer believes fully in its own eternity. It remembers when it did. That memory feels distant now, like a childhood confidence that no longer fits the adult world. There is gentle irony in this. The empire that once declared itself immortal now measures success in continuity. Another year, another decade, another generation, if fortune allows. The ambition has shrunk, not out of weakness, but out of experience. Rome has learned that survival is more complicated than conquest. The quiet after the night is not empty. It is reflective. The city seems to pause, not because it has nowhere to go, but because it is aware of how much it carries. History weighs differently when it becomes long enough to bend posture. Somewhere, a clerk files away documents written in the night. Somewhere, a guard sleeps through the morning, finally released from vigilance. Somewhere, a priest cleans ashes from an altar, careful not to think about unanswered prayers. Life continues carefully. The unsettling truth is how familiar this all feels. There is no single moment that marks decline, no clear boundary between strength and fragility. Rome exists in the overlap, adjusting constantly, convincing itself that adjustment is the same as renewal. It is tempting to look back and declare this the beginning of the end. History often does that confidently from a safe distance, but living inside Rome at this moment feels different. It feels like maintenance, like holding together something valuable that no longer grows. The city does not mourn its lost certainty. It simply stops mentioning it. And there is humor here, subtle and unavoidable. The empire that once conquered the known world now hopes for a quiet afternoon. The empire that called itself eternal now negotiates with fatigue. An empire once immortal, one might say softly, now just hoping for a little more sleep. The joke lands gently, not cruelly. Rome has earned the right to be tired. As the day progresses, the night fades further into memory. People forget what they worried about, or they pretend to. Routine reasserts itself. Routine is Rome's most loyal ally. Yet when evening comes again and the lamps are lit once more, the same questions will return. The same whispers, the same calculations, the same quiet prayers. Rome will go through another night, just as it always has. This is not tragedy. It is continuity without illusion. Rome remains standing, impressive, functional, deeply human. It is no longer invincible. It may never have been. What matters now is that it continues adjusting its expectations to match reality. The stillness after the long night settles in, not silence but calm, a calm that allows reflection or sleep, depending on the listener. The city does not demand attention anymore. It simply exists, carrying its contradictions with practiced grace. And so we leave Rome here, not at its height, not at its fall, but in between, awake enough to worry, tired enough to rest, strong enough to endure, uncertain enough to feel real. The night has passed. The empire remains. Changed? Perhaps permanently, but still breathing. You may drift now if you wish, or think. Rome will continue either way.